Tonight, a tropical depression near the Philippines on our tropical weather bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical weather bulletin for December 11th. Around the world we have the remnants of Mandous over southern India and tropical depression 29W, which has just formed in the last 24 hours just off the eastern coast of Luzon in the Philippine Islands. We've had 90 storms form so far in 2022. In the Atlantic, things remain very quiet now that area of interest from a few days ago is long gone. 172 days until the next hurricane season begins, but until then, hopefully, it's going to remain very quiet. Let's check now towards the South Pacific, looking at this 60% area of interest here, south of the Fiji and Tonga Islands, heading out there towards the south. And tropicality is going to be a big question for this system, but it will spin up into a storm of some description and eventually swirl around near New Zealand. And tropical depression 29W has formed to the northeast of Luzon, the southern part of Luzon there, and is gradually, slowly but surely, moving away from the coast of the northern Philippine Islands. In the North Indian Ocean, we have the remnants of Mandous, which are continuing across the southern tip almost of India, and will eventually enter the Arabian Sea. Its remnants will probably continue for another few days yet before they completely dissolve. Let's check the latest satellite imagery across the North Atlantic right now, and it looks like this. You can see in the very northeastern part there, that extratropical cyclone really filling out and looking very impressive. That was the Atlantic area of interest that we were tracking for a while, and it will linger probably for another week or so up there in the northeastern Atlantic. The rest of the basin is barren, and in the eastern Pacific you can see a lot of dry air mass there as well, but moisture coming in from the west there affecting northern Mexico, and some of it becoming an atmospheric river up towards California, and also looking at that other area of moisture moving through the southern United States right now. Here is a look at that depression. 29W is the JTWC tag. Pagasa have named it as well, although I forget what it was already. But there isn't an international name on this storm just yet. Indeed, it isn't yet a storm, although it is getting fairly close to tropical storm status with 35 mph winds. A little bit bare on the eastern side of that convection, with some cloud tops blowing up closer to the center in the last few frames. So it does look like it will get to tropical storm status and have at least a short spell as our next tropical storm. Probably only around 48 hours or so, if that. Looking down towards the southern Pacific, you can't really see it much here, but right on the southwestern corner you can see what's the peripherals of that other area of interest that we're monitoring, starting to get a little bit better rotation, but convection still lacking a little. Here's a wide shot of the western Pacific right now, and you can see that depression really tangled in a big long frontal line there, which extends from the South China Sea all the way up towards the Ogasawara Islands of Japan. Enormous area there, and that depression really spinning out and looking decent. You know, you could be forgiven thinking it's a storm already, and it probably will be soon. Indian Ocean looks like this. You might be able to make out the remnants of Mandous there. Still got a bit of convection to it, particularly on the western side, which is now entering the Arabian Sea. A lot of monsoonal type pattern going on there as well near Indonesia. There's another disturbance that could form out of that later on. And in the southern hemisphere, it's looking like this right now. A big blob of convection not far from the Cocos Islands on the western part of that image. You can see some blowing up convection. That is a system that we are also monitoring maybe next week for potential activity. And down the South Pacific there you can see that big line of storms too. Sea surface temperatures in the eastern Pacific right now, we're looking at 29, pushing 30 degrees Celsius possibly still in parts of the eastern Pacific. Not that it really matters because it's a dead basin. The Atlantic, should there be any late activity, well, it's going to be out of thin air, I think, but very warm sea surface temperatures still in the Caribbean. There's just no areas of interest or thunderstorms or convection or anything of that type that's really entering that area. That's what we get in the off season. Indian Ocean looks like this. You can see 30 degrees getting close to, not far from the coast of Myanmar, but generally it's around 28 degrees. Warmer in the Philippine Sea area, 28-29 degrees Celsius where that depression is right now. It's around 28, and warmer still in the Australian region along those northern coastlines, 30 degrees plus. Where that disturbance is, it's probably around 28, that Australian region system. Southern Pacific there as well, getting up close to 30 degrees as well for that system down there near Fiji. And here is another view showing the anomalies, and very warm anomalies in the South Pacific and in the Western Pacific. Eastpac is much below average still. The Atlantic is still around average in the tropical zone, and a little bit higher than that in the subtropical regions. Now we get to look at the oceanic heat content in the South Pacific, and you can see here that it's mainly in the lower latitudes. South of Fiji, there's really not much of that where that system is, and looking towards the Western Pacific as well, north of the equator, you can see all of this going on with a few areas of very good oceanic heat content, but generally it is decaying in the Philippine Sea even, but still decent amounts. Well then, let's check the GFS computer models over the next few days, and this is a look at the short range in the Western Pacific, and you can see that storm developing. It really doesn't last very long though before getting completely sucked into that front, and then it really stretches out there, and that pattern continues for a while. There it is again. How long does it last? Not very, and not even a tropical storm for most of that duration, so it may only be a 12 to 24 hour tropical storm before it weakens back to a depression. In the South Indian Ocean, you can see this potential system that's generally moving westwards. GFS quite keen on its development, and a few of the models picking up on it as well. Pretty much all of them have possibly a tropical depression in the 5-day period. GFS has it becoming a tropical storm probably on 2 different occasions there as we look at this imagery. First westwards, then a little turn to the southwest, and then it resumes turning towards the west again later on, and perhaps that might even be a center relocation or something going on there. And this is the South Pacific. You can see this curling in, and once again this system, not sure about its tropicality, but interesting chances of development, and even it doesn't have tropical storm force winds for that long before completely unraveling, but New Zealand will probably get a few gusty days even potentially from this system as it swirls around just north of the North Island. So that's a fascinating short range perspective. Let's take a look at the longer range. This is day 5 to 10, looking again at the South Indian Ocean, the only real area to look at in this period. And you can see that storm getting its really starting to get going there as we enter the later days here, and becoming a substantial cyclone and maintaining its low latitude as well, not turning at all, staying very much on a westward course. You don't really see that very often in the Indian Ocean. Just some of the classic cyclones have exhibited that in the past, but that's interesting to witness, and it starts to stall towards the end of that 10-day period. That's all the serious stuff done. You can scan the barcode and take a look at the Force 13 merch store, and hopefully have it delivered in time for Christmas. We also have our Still Waiting for Hone t-shirts, along with our full season and individual animations on request. Well then, into the silly range, and this is what we have in store for the Philippines. And is it going to be another dastardly Christmas surprise? Well, the GFS has a long-range typhoon that starts to develop on Christmas Day, just to the east of Catanduanes, and then intensifies to a category 3 there, approaching Luzon. It's the first time I've seen this on the long-range GFS, so we look for model consistency if there's going to be any hope at all. Let's hope not, of this system actually forming, and then we start to look out for other models picking up on it. So far we're still not even at stage 1. And here's the other system, the South Indian Ocean storm, and it's on a marathon run, category 3 there, maybe even stronger, rounding the east coast of Mauritius and then down towards the southwest, so it doesn't actually harm any land areas with more than probably brief tropical storm force winds. Let's just watch that again, but don't forget this is extremely long range, day 10 to 16, it is very, very far out. There it is, tropical storm force winds for both islands there at Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Well then, what happened on this day in 1998? We had two cyclones active, both in the Western Pacific. Typhoon Faith was at its Category 2 peak, moving through the Sulu Sea towards Palawan, and we had Tropical Storm Gil, which was a very weak storm and had an exposed centre of circulation there, but it was in an unusual place heading into the Gulf of Thailand by this point, moving westwards. Didn't last very long though, and died off before it managed to get to the Malay Peninsula. Fascinating. We certainly don't have that kind of action today. Let's go back to it then, and the next name on the Atlantic naming list, if we get any more, and that is a whopping big if at this point, it's Owen. In the Eastern Pacific, Seymour, and in the Central Pacific, we're still waiting for Hone. Yep, still waiting. Such a long time. We're going to get old waiting for Hone. In the Western Pacific, we may be on the verge of getting the next named storm, Pakar, and in the North Indian Ocean, our next name now is Mocha. 90 storms so far this year. We're very close to the annual average. I'm pretty sure we will exceed it. In the Australian region, next name is Darian, Southwest Indian Ocean, Chaniso, and the South Pacific, it's Harley. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again on Monday night.